or, so all those in favor of approving the minutes from November 5th?
Aye.
It's enthusiastically unanimous.
I'm not sure you have a quorum, but that's okay.
Well, we're short a couple members.
So we're
Oh,
usually
really?
9 and now we're 7, is that right?
I think so. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Who resigned?
1, 2.
Oliver Rick resigned and Tricia Hopkins.
Oh, really? Oh,
I've noticed that Oliver and I think Tricia too are sometimes on the all committee emails that are still going out.
Oh, yeah, I can fix that. And I should take them off the stationery too.
Yeah.
Both of them moved, by the way, Bob. That's why they're no longer on.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. First item on the agenda is the bike ped plan update. Important date coming up. I guess, Laura, you're the best one to talk about this.
Yeah, there's not really much news, but I just want to make sure everybody had it on their calendars and was planning to attend. It's going to be in, excuse me, a format of the Economic Development and Planning and Public Works Committees of the Council. So they'll be chairing the meeting, but then McMahon will do a presentation, which if anybody wants to see it before, from the town website, there's a flyer, and the flyer has links to the presentation as well as the Zoom. And starting Monday, there will be a place where you can make comments on that.
Okay.
And it's called a story board, I think, or something along those lines.
So where do we find it, Laura? Just
On the town website.
where? Because I find that website a little
I know,
confusing.
it's terrible. We have a new IT director and he is a ball of fire, and we are gonna have a better website. I can't say when,
Soon.
but, so go to it says government, which is basically the town departments. I'm gonna
Okay.
do it now, Sheila. I'm gonna walk you through it. So go to
Wait a minute,
government.
1 minute. I'm sort of trying to I'm catching up a little bit here to
Okay.
find links. So you go to Watertown, Mass.
You see in the top, there's something called, I think it's government. I think
Okay.
that's what it's called. Do you see that?
Nope, because I'm not on it, but let me go there.
Other ways to link to it are from the agenda for the meeting, which is on the town calendar. Probably also not totally transparent, but
Is it watertownma.gov? Sorry.
yes, dash
Right.
MA.
Oh, wait a minute. Where's the dash between the Watertown?
Yeah.
I don't have the site bookmarked. I'm still not used to, okay. Up where it says government.
Yeah, do you see that?
Yep.
Okay, and it's the drop down menu is all the different departments. Look for
Yep.
community development and planning.
Okay.
Click on that.
Yep.
And then I think it's on the left. There's some sort of sub areas, and one of them is transportation.
Yep.
Click on transportation, and then this bike ped plan is one of the sub things. Bike ped committees right at the top, and then bike ped plans down below.
Wait a minute. I think
Sorry, guys.
no, I don't see it. You got transportation planning brings up bike and ped committee, community path, parking, bicycle and pedestrian planning.
That's it.
That's it. Okay.
Right, on that page, you'll find the draft of the plan and
And the flyer and the Zoom link. Guess
yes.
what? I'm putting the link to I'm going to put the link to the meeting flyer in the minutes. I
Okay.
think that's the faster way to do this.
Thank you,
Okay.
Sheila. Thanks.
I would note that the school committee is meeting on the high school project plan at roughly the same time. So I may not be able to attend both, but I'll see if I can have somebody from Watertown for All Ages at this one as well.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure we scheduled this first, but it doesn't matter. Don't worry.
Yeah, but
There will
Mark
always
runs
be
the other one.
conflict because there's just too many meetings.
Yeah.
Laura, do you know what will happen at this meeting? Is there a vote or is it just sort of a
No, I think
comments?
there could be some vote where they'll vote to recommend it favorably to the council. The wild card is, will they want us to do another presentation to the council, or will they just make the recommendation and the council will adopt it? And, you know, I think if a number of councilors come, maybe they won't need to have the presentation a second time. Lisa Feltner, I notice, is on the line. Lisa, you're on, which one of the, you're on EDP, right?
Yes, economic development planning. So we have a joint with Public Works on the plan.
Right, so that's 6 counselors right there. So if the other 3 were to come,
Woohoo!
there would be no reason to have another presentation.
I suspect though that the other 3 may be at the high school presentation to the school.
Yeah,
vote
Mark
to the school
actually
committee.
has to go to that.
Yeah. Oh, well.
We'll see. We will see. Anyway, that decision, we can't make that decision until we get there because it's really their decision.
Okay. Anything else around the bike ped plan? As Laura pointed out, we do have a couple guests. Lisa's here, and Hannah, welcome. Next item on the agenda, Amy, we have you on the agenda talking about culture change. Is that something you're prepared to speak to right now?
Yeah, that's fine. I think it's going to be more of a discussion, but I can kind of say how this came about, I guess, and what I was thinking. Of course, my heat is on and loud now. Hopefully you can still hear me. So yeah, I think this idea came about in relation to an email about the flu shots in Watertown this fall, where they were doing sort of a drive-through flu clinic and not really making accommodations, or I think just not realizing that, you know, a lot of people don't have cars, might not want to drive or be able to drive for whatever reason. So it just kind of got me thinking of, you know, you wouldn't necessarily think that the health department has a role in, you know, walking and biking, but it kind of got me thinking, you know, what other parts of town government or people in town, you know, maybe don't realize, but could actually do a lot to promote walking and biking through, you know, how they do their events or how they communicate about transportation. And I thought that, you know, with the bike plan coming out now, it could be sort of a good opportunity to engage with some other town committees or departments, or, you know, maybe with the public in some way. So just kind of wanted to bring that up at this meeting and see, you know, what ideas people have. I have a few, but I definitely want to hear from everyone about, you know, whether you think this makes sense, and what ideas you have for reaching out or connecting with some, you know, not the usual suspects, but sort of beyond who we usually talk to.
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about this before, Amy, and you know, when I saw the email or whatever it was about the flu shots, I had the same thought. I'm thinking, oh, I might want to ride my bike over there, but I'm like, well, that won't work. So, thank you for noticing that. The next thought I had was, if we use this flu shot situation kind of as a use case, what would
A what case?
getting the flu shots, the scenario
As
that
a use case? Use it as a use case?
you're
Yes,
seeing.
it's a technical term, Laura. It means an example, a scenario, something that happens that you use to
Sorry.
test or define what you're trying to do.
It's good to have another IT person here. Thank you, Maria. So I'm trying to think, what would that look like?
Yeah.
You know, if we could, that whole flu shot situation, how would that go if we could sort of inject ourselves
So to
into
speak.
that?
Can I,
Yeah,
can I,
please.
so I had to get a COVID test in Somerville one time, and they had it set up with two different, they had car drive up lanes and they had a pedestrian bike drive up lane.
Ah,
And they just had it all set up. So if you walked up, uh, they had it set up, with good social distancing, all the rest, keeping the staff safe, but they had it set up well so that you could do either. And it was seamless. So I don't even think, I think we could contact, this was done through Somerville Hospital and behind there. But I think we could contact them and say, can you just tell us how you set this up? But what it said to me was that from the town, the information that they got to the hospital was you prepare for both scenarios, for people to walk, to bike, or to drive. And you just always consider all these options. So
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Sheila.
no, it's okay. I'm done. By the way, I keep going mute, you guys, because I had patients till 7 o'clock, so I'm finishing eating my dinner. So
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's, exactly what we should try to figure out, not necessarily just specific to the flu shots, but how do we get that, how do people in town who are planning events, whether it's next year's flu shot or, schools, or when there start to be more in-person events again, how do we get people thinking about the fact that people are, some people are driving, but lots of people are walking and biking and taking transit. And so one thought that I had sort of related to the bike plan was whether we could connect with some of the other committees in town and sort of, go to their meetings as a guest and kind of share a little bit about the bike plan and some considerations related to promoting walking and biking, as it relates to whatever issue that they deal with. So I don't really know all of the other committees and whether that would be a good fit or not, but just throwing that out there as an idea.
I think that's a great idea to go there. I would also say, let's be aware of the fact that COVID vaccines will be issued starting sometime, this spring. And I think they're probably going to do them town by town. And so there is another time coming up when they may very well have to run the exact same scenario.
All right, I'm going to interject here, just a matter of procedure, and I switched to participants, and I see that Lisa has her technical hand raised. So I think what that means is we might try to revert to that.
Okay.
Is that okay with everybody?
Where do you see the technical hands?
So down below, when
Yeah.
there should be an icon that says participants.
Yep.
And if you
Okay.
click on that, you'll get like a sidebar, a list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And
And
at
All
the
right.
very bottom,
Yes.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yep. So Lisa and then Hannah, because Hannah and then Maria, and then Jesse. All right. So Lisa.
Thanks, Andy. I don't mean to interrupt your meeting. I just had an idea and I wasn't sure since I don't have the video on. But anyway, thanks for your creative thinking there, Amy. I just had a thought. I wonder if you guys might consider kind of a bike ped in a box toolkit, like
Oh,
a new store is opening. So because I mentioned to the developers at the Arsenal Mall, especially with COVID, wouldn't it be cool? And you could use this area to have bike training and for all ages. Or Victory Field is going to be torn up, and kids love to take their bikes there to ride anyway, even though they're not supposed to be on the track. Let's have a day or a weekend where everyone comes to Victory Field. And I know it's a lot of work. I mean, those are actual events, but I was thinking maybe there's something that would interest you all, with your experience of, almost like I don't want to say groundbreaking, or ribbon cutting, but I don't know, just like to Amy's point of kind of fun engagements of, first 10 people with their bikes get an ice cream. I don't know. So anyway, just want to share that, with all your expertise, whatever that means for you, for, or even, there's a lot of strong network between realtors, landowners, when people buy property. So anyway, I'm sure there's all kinds of things you could do, but I just wanted to chime in that I support you getting creative and thinking about culture and education and reaching out to businesses as well as residents.
Right. Yeah, I know that's something we could do a lot more in the area of outreach. I think that's definitely true. So Hannah, I think you had your hand up next.
Yeah, so I appreciate Lisa's point. And I particularly like the sort of positive spin on that. So I wanted to share another good news story. Actually, it happened while I was biking home from work about half an hour ago. I came up from Little Greeno to cut through like the area behind the commander's mansion to go out to Arsenal Mall. And there were all these Christmas lights and songs. And so I asked one of the police officers what was going on. And it was a drive-through Christmas party kind of thing, like meet and greet these characters and stuff. And she said, without me asking her, she said, "You could come through on your bike." I said, "Really? Can I cut in?" And she held up the line of traffic and let me cut in. I'm sure like you weren't supposed to, because they didn't want people outside of their protective vehicles. So I put my mask back on and I drove around that, and it was really fun. Everyone kind of waved at me and I thanked the cop. And so I think imagine if you were that police officer and you got a communique saying, "Pay more attention to bikes and pedestrians," you would think, what do I do? Like, I already do that. So I think it's important to sort of meet people where they are, but also present it in a way that it's like we're merging onto the same road. We're not crashing in from the side saying we've noticed that there is a problem. And I get that the like drive-through vaccine thing was not run in the same way, but I think that there's a way to kind of maybe present it. I don't know. I don't mean to be criticizing anybody. I just mean to be thinking about a way that we might present it that would get more people on board.
So you're saying more of a collaboration?
Well, remember how we changed the comment to was it a letter to the town council or a letter to DPW or something about the pushback about the bike lanes on Arlington Street? We changed it from create a safe place for people to bike to many people already bike there. So sort of a, like, this is already happening. People are already doing it. People are already, yeah, more of a collaboration and also more of a positive spin. Not necessarily that everybody deserves that positive spin, but just that we might get further that way. And if you're one of those people who was already kind of maybe bending a little bit the rules to let the bike in, you would want to have that celebrated.
I think that what you're saying also is that the most effective thing you could do sometimes is to address it when you see it, as opposed to going to the Board of Health to say when you do your COVID, make sure you, which I think is also useful because we know it's coming. You're absolutely right. But if you wanted to go get a flu shot and there wasn't a bike line, if you had gone and just said, you know, is there any way that I can do this without being in a car? Like sometimes that gets more supportive. I wouldn't say more supportive, but it gets a supportive response. And I'll just say while I have the floor, that one of my things about culture change was also about the snow shoveling. And that's another thing is if you have a neighbor and you see them outside and they're on their driveway and they didn't do their sidewalk, but they did their driveway, and you just said, you know, could you do the sidewalk too so that I could walk my dog or whatever? I don't know. Sometimes maybe that's better than kind of shouting to everyone. I don't know.
All right. So Maria,
Oh, am I on mute? No, am I
Nope.
on mute?
you have your
Oh,
hand
you're
up.
not. Okay. Yeah, I did. I just couldn't remember if I was muted, unmuted. This is like the 6th or 7th.
Well, and I will ask
Meeting.
people who have talked to put their hands down. So if they want to speak again, I can tell that they want to speak again. So
Yeah. I wanted to follow up. This is a really interesting discussion. And I think it's a great idea. When Tia and I got in line in our cars, because we were going somewhere else for the flu shot, I was talking to the folks there who were organizing and taking names and getting things ready. And I said, you know, you guys, I noticed that there was only one way. There was a lot of, there was no way if I rode my bike here, which I would have done most of the time, that, I would have known what to do. And they said, oh, it wouldn't have been a problem. We would just put you in line. And I said, well, sometimes people don't think that they're included if they're not mentioned. And it was like thunderstruck. Okay. They had not considered that it would come across in an unwelcoming way. And I said, I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of people in town who don't have cars. And the way they get around is either on bicycles and walking. And she was even more thunderstruck by that idea, because I think there are a lot of people in town who have not even the remotest thought that not everybody has a car. Okay. And I think in our reaching out, and as part of maybe the bike plan, I think we need to start emphasizing this and help people see the transition that the town has made and is making. Because I do not see that we are getting people moving in town who have traditionally lived in this town and have traditionally owned a car. We're getting a lot of people who, yes, do own a car, but we're also getting a lot of people who have not owned a car, have no plans to own a car, and get around on their bike and on public transit. And I think that it shocks people when they make this discovery. One of the people that does not have a car, I shouldn't say, well, she does actually have a car, does not use the car, is Anita, Vinny's wife. You will see her around town in her nice new electric bike. And that is the way she goes to work when she has to go into the office. That is the way that she goes to the store. You'll see her loaded down with bags. I mean, she comes by our house because they live near me. But I think that there's no understanding that there are people like her, people who are newbies to town. And I like this idea of being able to reach out and figuring out how we can begin to share the knowledge that the town is not the way it was 30 years ago. People moving in don't necessarily have a car and want the options that come with it. Does that make sense?
Yep. Thanks, Maria. Jesse, I think you're next.
Yeah, first I just want to say that, Hannah, that's an awesome story that you told about going through the commander's mansion thing. And I would even suggest that you maybe send a quick note to the police department and maybe the commander's mansion, just commending them on that. And, you know, maybe that'll get it in their heads that like, this is, you know, cyclists appreciate that kind of positive reinforcement, or, you know, inclusion, I guess is the right word. So that was great. I wanted to also say, or to kind of build on what Lisa said about reaching out to some of the businesses. A lot of these life sciences buildings that are coming into town, and also some of the residential complexes, seem to be touting their bike storage and trying to, you know, how they're increasing the ability for people to take alternative modes of transportation other than driving in. And so I wonder too, if, like what Lisa was saying, maybe we can create some sort of one sheet or some sort of packet, or even just an introductory email that we can send to these developers or the businesses and their CEOs or something, kind of introducing ourselves, explaining what we do, and maybe soliciting or trying to figure out if opening it up, I should say, to people who are interested to join the meetings, or just to be aware that we're here and stuff like that, and just kind of spread the word, especially as I imagine these companies are going to be bringing in a lot of people, a lot of new people to our town and stuff. So, and then the other thought that came to mind is, as Amy was kind of saying about reaching out to some of the other organizations in town, I was thinking of the library and how they do some of these fantastic theme displays with books and stuff. And maybe this is something we could work on with them in May for National Bike Month or National Bike Week or something like that. We can maybe, I'm sure we all have a bike book that we'd be willing to help them curate and put out, and maybe create some sort of display or something that can sort of get the word out in not a secret way, but just in a subtle way in some of the places that people aren't used to seeing things about bike transportation, and even pedestrian transportation too. You know, we shouldn't forget that aspect of it. And so, like, the library is certainly a cultural institution. Maybe we can work with some of the others, like Mosesi and the theater and stuff like that, to see, like, really aim for the culture part of this topic in Watertown. So that's all.
All right. Thanks, Jesse. I kind of like that. That's kind of a unique way of thinking. Yeah, it's but, you know, I like that idea. So Sheila, I think you're next.
So I like everything we've all said, and I want to say that I think that one of the things that really makes a difference is when it is embedded in the culture of the town government, and the town makes decisions thinking that way, you know, promotes that as a point of view. And Laura, I certainly don't get that is the ethos of the town. But I would just wonder how we can also approach some of the town departments to really encourage them to think this way, like the health department, you know, like, you know, DPW, I think, has some idea of this, and Matt certainly keeps this in the front. But I don't. What?
DPW has a new director, by the way, who I've met, but I haven't worked with yet. So I'm hopeful that we'll have a little bit more traction over there.
All right, but I just wonder, you know, how we could begin to reach out to some of the other town departments, because
Well, I think the health department is good, and I think we absolutely should do it before they start having vaccine clinics. And I can talk to the people that I know in that department and see.
Or just give us the name of somebody in the department that we could then send a letter to and say, this was our experience. We just want to encourage you to include when you start contemplating other clinics of any sort.
I mean, I think it would be the director, but it would also be the Board of Health.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Sheila. I think Amy, you're next.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing all these ideas. I think it's really exciting. I think there's a lot of good stuff here. As I was listening, I was trying to think of, I feel like we could brainstorm on this topic for a while, and I was kind of trying to think of, what are some concrete next steps. And I think the health department one is a really good one. And I liked Jesse's idea of, creating some sort of handout or, small toolkit or something. I think Lisa mentioned that as well, of something you can give to businesses or developments in town. And, maybe we could create some version of that could be given to some of the other town governments or town departments as well in government. Things like, here are the things to consider when you're planning an event to, make sure it includes bikes. And I think, some of it could be sort of that proactive, but I also definitely hear the point that, Hannah and others have made about, we kind of also have to all take it upon ourselves to act when we see something. And, if we see an event listed that's, not including walking and biking as sort of modes of transportation that they expect people to arrive by, maybe reaching out and saying something, I'm really excited to attend this, but just want you to consider, adding, transit directions to your website or whatever it is. So I think there's some, concrete things we can do now, but also just all sort of keeping this in mind, both at the personal level and in events that we're going to.
Okay. Thanks, Amy. Hannah, you're next, and then Lisa.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add was I think DPW actually sponsored that Christmas drive-through thing that I was just at. So if that augurs well, maybe it does. That's all I wanted to say.
Was that, can I ask you a question? Was that at Arsenal Yards or was that at the Commander's Mansion?
Commander's Mansion.
Oh,
I think it was deep.
actually, it's probably right, because the Commander's Mansion is under planning.
Sorry.
So Laura,
Part of the planning department.
Laura, I think you're kind of away from your computer.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, I'm too relaxed.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, good. Anyway, yeah, it's out of my department, but we didn't have anything to do with it. It's the women who run the mansion who did that. I shouldn't say the women, the people.
Thank you, Hannah. Lisa.
Yeah, I'm thinking opportunity on DPW. So we've been putting in more new sidewalks, and I wonder if, Laura, you might know, given that we have this walking map that a lot of people don't know about, I don't know if it necessarily even needs any updates. But maybe when a new sidewalk goes in, or like you said, a new business, or there's an event, or maybe on the Bike Ped website, I don't know, whatever you guys want. With years ago with Tufts, the grant and walking to school and all that, just making, I know it's hard, COVID, we can't get together and have events and say, hey, come walk with me, but I just find a lot of people aren't aware that I think it's a pretty nice map. So that's just maybe a pre-made thing that might be a easy thing to pull out. And with the new DPW heads, you get the pedestrians in there too, who I find sometimes, you have a stroller and a bike and a dog and a walker and you hit all marks for support there. So anyway, thanks for your creativity.
Thanks, Lisa. Maria, is your hand still up or is it up a second time? Okay, all right, thanks. Before we wrap this up, would there be any next steps on this? Or do you want to take this away and revisit it after people have had time to process it? It sounds like the latter. So Amy, would I be able to impose on you to sort of revisit this at some point in the future?
Yeah, I think so. Although I think at least one concrete step was what was mentioned about reaching out to the health department now. And then the other thing was about the library bike month. I mean, May's a long time away, but I don't know how far in advance they plan those displays. So it might not hurt to reach out now.
All right, thanks for that clarification. I'm glad you clarified that. So in terms of reaching out to the health department, who wants to handle that? I know, well, who would want to follow through on that?
If someone will work with me on that, I would be glad to help draft a letter.
Okay, so we can do that. I mean, would that make sense? We draft a letter and we send it under the, I send it out, or we send it out under the name of Bike Ped Committee, or is that what we want to do?
I mean, I defer to you about what the best approach is. I guess I don't want to seem too, I don't know if a letter is too aggressive word, but we want to be friendly and sort of helping. And I don't know if a letter on official letterhead is what we would want at this point, but if that's the right way to reach to another town department.
Well, Amy, I think it sounds like you've got kind of a method in mind. I mean, how would you follow through with this?
Well, I mean, I think some sort of communication is good. I was just saying, maybe it can just be as simple as an email rather than a formal letter on the Bike Ped Committee letterhead. That's all.
Okay.
But I'm happy to work with Sheila on that if you want.
Okay, that would be fantastic.
I have a question.
Okay, yep.
I was going to ask Laurie, you know the director. What do you think would work best?
I think you definitely want to send it to the Board of Health as well. I mean, I don't think just the director is sufficient. I just don't, I don't really. Yeah, that's just my gut feeling is that just sending it to the director wouldn't be enough.
Sufficient.
Yeah, I'll be happy to help with the distribution and to do a proofread kind of thing as well and edit.
So it sounds like it's really an email as opposed to a letter.
Well, I would do a letter because I think it's easier to get it to submit it to the Board of Health as it then becomes like a document.
Okay. Well, so we're back to the letter.
I mean, who said they wanted to do Sheila and who else? Sheila and Amy?
Yeah, so Laura, I was going to suggest, is this too formal or could we just sort of break off a working group to kind of come up with an approach and a letter and then bring it back to committee next month and we'll review it?
Oh, okay.
Can I make a point about that? Given that the flu clinic wasn't that long ago, I think it's more, this is just me, that was relatively recent and still in people's minds, that if we send something now, it's going to feel more responding to something that happened. And
well, my only concern is that it's an action that the committee's taking. And I think technically, do we have to worry about having voted on that? Or can the working group just do this unilaterally? What's your thought on that, Laura?
I don't know. I guess it probably should come back to the committee, but it's not that time sensitive. I don't think we're gonna miss the opportunity. Like if it was something that we really had to get out fast, I would say, well, we could do it.
Okay.
I think the committee would have to give authority to those two people to send something out, which you could do, but.
Yeah, why don't we do, Laura, why don't we do this? Amy and Sheila can draft a letter, run it by Andy. Okay, Laura, you can take a look at it. And, if you all agree, send it, for God's sakes. What are we gonna say? Stop doing this? We're really gonna say, hey, let us help you think it through, or let us help you next time around, please consider. I think between Amy and Sheila, they can draft something. Andy can take a look at it. You can take a look at it. And if it works, let's do it.
So let me ask you this. Let's assume that what Maria just said was a motion. Can we vote on that? On that plan of action? Is anybody opposed to that plan of action? All right, so let's do that.
Let's do it.
Okay.
So, the three of you will talk, we'll write it together and then run it by me, or I'm happy to participate during the process as well. But Andy,
Okay.
you're like the final, you read the
Sure.
second draft. So Amy, Sheila, and we can either have a Zoom or a conference call, or just somebody can write it and run it by us.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds
All
good.
right.
In a week or so, we'll try to get it together, or sooner.
All right.
Okie dokie.
Thank you, everybody. Next item is an update on the snow removal ordinance, and I'm glad Bob's here. Bob, I'm going to throw it to you because you had the latest communication. The latest communication where you updated Mark on our new strategy. So you're probably the best person to give the status.
Yeah, it really goes back to the conversation that Andy had with Vinny and the decision to, because snow removal is part of the bike ped plan that's being presented next Monday. And that'll be forwarded to the town council, and it's part of that plan. So the town council will be getting it at the December meeting. Do we have any idea?
I would guess not, to tell you the truth. There'll only be one December meeting after
I thought it
the,
was January, probably.
yeah.
January? Okay.
Yes, it's gonna go.
And then after it's presented to the town council, then the next step would be for us to work with Mark and whatever committee he assigns the sidewalks snow removal ordinance to work with them to come up with some draft language. Now, Vinny recommended that the ordinance be comprehensive, covering owner-occupied and non-owner occupied residences, but phased in so that the non-owner occupied residences, i.e. absentee landlords, have to comply in the first year, and then in the following year, after education programs have gone forth, to apply it to the owner-occupied residences. I'm not sure how Mark's going to respond to that. I'm not sure whether he didn't give me feedback one way or the other, but and he was very concerned about the political blow-ups we've had in the past with owner-occupied residences. But that seems to be the plan at the moment. So get it approved, the plan approved by the town council, and as one of the action steps within the plan is sidewalk snow removal. We work with Mark and whatever committee assigns it to draft an ordinance, and we'll see where we are at that point. Does that make sense, Andy?
Absolutely. Nope. Yeah, you presented that well. That's the strategy.
Okay.
Any discussion or questions around what's happening with snow removal?
I just have one question. I think Laura, you mentioned that there was an opportunity for comments on the bike plan. Is that right?
Yeah.
Bob, do you think it would be helpful to try to get comments on in support of the snow removal piece in particular as part of that, so you can kind of point to that and show support? Or
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. My group's meeting tomorrow as it happens. And we will have somebody, it may be me, maybe somebody else at the presentation on Monday. So I think both having a written endorsement of calling that out and then somebody at the meeting also bringing it up was a good idea. Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, that's great.
Lisa's got her hand up. Lisa?
Yeah. So there's a draft. Is there something you can share that you've been working on, Bob, or?
There isn't at the moment, Lisa, because what we had previously thought of was and we had laid out what would be in a business context, the key points of
Yeah.
an ordinance, but it was the key points were for non-occupied, non-owner occupied residences only as the first cut. And then coming back a year or so later, Vinnie recommended that we do a comprehensive one-time ordinance that's phased in instead. So we haven't, we've got the basics of the points of the ordinance, but we haven't included the owner occupied piece yet.
Right. So I'm curious, are you saying that you anticipate a draft coming to, or your report coming to council in January, and then Mark refers it to rules and ordinances, maybe joint with Public Works, I don't know.
Yeah,
To
probably.
discuss.
And it would be the overall report of which something dealing with sidewalk snow removal is part of the bike plan overall report. This is just one to-do in the list of things within that report.
Oh, so, okay, but it's part of the bike plan, but it's not part of the bike plan right now that we're gonna be reviewing as committee, Laura?
No,
on-
it's a recommendation in the ped plan to promote, to pass the snow removal ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah, I think the idea
thanks for
here,
that.
oh, sorry. Yeah, I think the
But
idea,
there's no recommendation on what the ordinance would say in the bike plan, bike ped plan.
Right.
yeah, I mean, I think what it is that we pass the bike, we get the bike plan adopted first, and snow removal is one of the recommendations in the bike plan. So that's your leverage for moving forward on the snow removal program.
Yeah, no, I thanks for the, I just was trying to get the timeline and who is doing what.
Okay.
Excellent.
And in that regard, I drafted the first sort of key points of an ordinance, and I'd work with, and I think Mark would want us to work with town council or whatever. Once we have the points, the committees look at it, and then it gets turned over to the town attorney to put into ordinance language.
Any other questions on snow removal? Okay. Next item on the agenda, and I'm going to turn this over to Amy and Hannah, is an update on Little Green Owl. So Amy, Hannah, whoever wants to jump in.
Sure, I'm happy to start, and then Hannah definitely fill in. So I believe at our last meeting where we kind of left things off was Andy had submitted the letter to town council asking, for a council resolution that would sort of express support to DCR for the previous road closure, and ask them to, ask DCR to study closing the road in the future and piloting weekend closures in the spring. So that was discussed at the town council meeting in November, a few weeks ago, and was referred to the planning committee. Forgetting
Economic Development and something, EDP, Economic Development and Planning Law.
committee.
Yes.
So that is going to be discussed at that committee meeting next on December 10th, which I think is a week from today. So kind of preparing for that. Yeah, then I think, once we kind of have a answer from town council of whether they'll, do a resolution in support, the next steps will be to sort of formally take this to DCR with our ask and, trying to get the conversation really started there. Hannah, go ahead.
Yeah,
Fill in what I missed.
thank you, Amy. So everything Amy said is right. I just wanted to add, there was a little bit of confusion we felt at the town council meeting because the ask, so to speak, we've refined the ask over time. In hindsight, perhaps we could have been clearer, but none of us saw that coming exactly. So exactly what Amy said is the ask now is the ask now. That's the sort of official ask on behalf of the Bike Ped Committee. And also, whether we get that resolution, frankly, or not, State Senator Will Brownsberger told us, he actually offered of his own accord earlier in the autumn to add a letter of support when we send the package to DCR. So he's just waiting till we've got the package ready, and then I'll send it to him and he'll make his own letter rather than just sort of signing ours. He said, I'll do you one better. I'll add a letter of support there. So we're hopeful we'll get the town council support, but I think we should still go to DCR in any case. And it's nice that we're getting to the committee so quickly, so there won't be a big delay there.
Mm-hmm.
Gail, was there any sense of the council of, were people supportive of it, or they just referred it with that discussion?
So one issue that came up that I don't think we were really expecting, but I think Mark Sedaris brought it up, was the some of the new developments around Arsenal have traffic mitigation plans that involve, I think some of them involve a new traffic light at the intersection of Little Greeno. So I wasn't aware of that previously, and I'm still not totally sure of the specifics, but I think Mark had said at the meeting, that he had previously not realized this when he, received the letter from Andy or something along those lines. And then I think the other substantive comment or the opposition was from Angie Canellis, who read a letter that she had sent to Will Brownsberger when he had previously helped us circulate the petition a few months ago. I would say strongly against the road closure, but basically just read that email verbatim.
I would add to that I actually think that that's one objection, not two, because I think Councilor Canellis's objection was based around the traffic counts that were, or the projected traffic counts around that signal that may be added there. So I think there's actually only one objection, and I mean, maybe they're right. Like we'll find out more about that. I don't think that anybody's not willing to sort of work with us to try to figure out the best solution here.
All right, Lisa, I see your hand up. Is that from last time, or is this?
No, actually, it's about Little Greeno.
Okay. You're next.
Yeah, I'm somewhat concerned about it failing. I don't know if you guys are willing to do more legwork. I would hope that Laura, you could get input as transportation planner about concerns and, you know, because of the mitigation funds of them adding that signal there to regulate the traffic flow. So I don't know if you want to think a little more about, I mean, personally, I think it's a great idea. During COVID, there's less traffic, and being flexible, but maybe being a little more forceful and clear about what your ask is of the committee to consider to bring to council. I know I've been advocating for more creativity during this time with our roads, but there's a real reluctance to do that. I think part of it is just staff capacity to, you know, people have their hands full with COVID. It's not just an excuse, and there's all kinds of things like identity theft. I don't know if people realize the human resources, myself included, just hundreds of cases of trying to follow up on, you know, negative things that are happening around COVID that aren't necessarily even people getting sick, and the difficulties of trying to put out little fires, if you will. So, I don't know, you might want to, given that, you know, DCR property, circle back to Brownsburger and say, well, it's fine, you have a letter, but can we talk some logistics of, you know, Laura, I don't know if you can talk to Bill McQuillan before that, how they feel about that, you know, are they just keeping tight to the vest, or if this could be a pilot for, you know, and if it doesn't work, I don't know. I just have, I would like to see it work, and I have some current concerns given the things I've said about people's capacity to deal with new ideas in general, plus with the other issues around COVID and that. I'd hate to see it shot down.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for sharing that perspective. It's really helpful to get a little bit more insight into what the, you know, what you're hearing. I guess one thought, you know, we kind of like Hannah mentioned, we kind of started a little bit broad with this petition, and having talked more to people over the last few months, have kind of settled on these, you know, the approach that was outlined in Andy's letter to the town council, which is sort of focusing on the weekend closure, and also asking DCR to sort of study the traffic in the area, and sort of what it would take to close the road on the weekend, or to pilot a closure. So maybe that would address some of the other concerns, but you know, we're definitely, we don't want to, you know, push anything on anyone, and want to find something that can work and benefit.
Well, yeah, but I think you got to push. I mean, a study can get lost in the weeds, if you will, and maybe you want to reach out to. I know there are fans of that have associated with the recreation department for closing that. You know, even if it's on Sundays. We can talk online. I know you and I've been trying to connect anyway. So I'm happy to do that. Anyway, I just support you, and I know you don't have lots of time, and I'm not trying to scare anybody, but maybe just a few more phone calls might help, so that it doesn't get stuck in our committee, and it doesn't maybe get stuck in a study.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I'll follow up with you.
I just wanted to say thank you, Lisa, particularly because, am I correct in understanding and hearing what you're saying as the sticking point might not even be the traffic counts. The sticking point might be sort of limitation, just I can't deal with another thing sort of aspect of it? And
Yeah, and things take time. So I think it's good you're working on it now because, even if things went fairly smoothly by the time it comes out of committee and goes to council for a vote and then Brownsburger and the, DCR, we could easily looking at spring. So, but yeah, I think that we have a new DPW superintendent. It's got to be brought up to speed. But I mean, the mitigation is there. Laura's got to be aware of it, I'm sure, in the planning department. And, Bill McQuillan's group, Arsenal Yards, they're wanting to connect with the community and enliven that area. So you definitely could bring out the positive impacts of that. But as soon as I feel like, as soon as we talk about changes, some people get really nervous about, well, who's going to enforce that? What about equal access? So I guess, I think all those things can be worked out and they have valid points, but as much as you can be clear about the ultimate goal and maybe a time frame of, ideally when this is available. And I mean, even the health department, Stephanie on health and wellness, I mean, she does a ton and she might be like, I can't think about one more thing, but and recreation, I just think of those two things for a long time around programming and we need the outdoors. I mean, personally, it's just, we've got a long winter and people are losing their minds and going to be depressed and COVID weary. And so, it's all the more reason to get outside. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if there's those benefits like the cross country team and the Arsenal Yards construction. I mean, there's a lot of cases for it. I think that, but I don't want to take up more of your guys' times. I'm kind of thinking aloud here. So
appreciate it.
Okay. Sorry, Maria, did you want to speak? I think you're next.
I guess I am. Let me unlower my hand. I was just thinking back to that meeting, which seems like it was eons ago. I wanted to say, I didn't walk away with that meeting getting warm fuzzies. I think there were a lot of questions that we're going to have to address and just be very, very clear about what we're asking for. We're not going to change Angie, so I would not worry about that, to be very blunt. But I do think that there is support, but also concern. And we have to be really clear about what we're asking for and why. And I like the idea of checking in with some of the other people that Lisa was talking about to see if there's any organizing around that we could do. This could easily go down if it gets out of hand. And by that, I mean that I really walked away feeling like, what's the problem here? Why am I getting a sense that there's a lot more resistance to this than there should be? And I think Lisa's point about change is a good one to take. And the things I think, Amy, and Hannah, we got to go back and reach out to more people and begin to pull them in so that it doesn't sound like it's just those crazies on the bike committee that are always trying to do something, but it's a broader group. That's all.
Thanks, Maria. Any other discussion on Little Greeno?
Can I do something without raising my hand virtually? First of all, my internet is connected, so I missed some of the discussion, but I feel like, and we put our finger on this before, it's a complicated thing to close a road, and we don't really understand all the ramifications, and all we're really asking them to do is to consider it and to study it. We're not asking them to close it. We're asking them to we want to open the discussion. That was my understanding of what the ask was, actually. And the resolution could be to support the consideration of closing Little Greeno. And also, by the way, I will look into that traffic light and what the status of that is. But that's just like one of many things that we don't really understand the ramifications of it fully. And that's, that's an important step.
Well, so I think that was part of the problem at the meeting was I think when it was referred to committee, I think the ask was presented differently than what the letter said. It made it sound like the ask was to close the road when really the ask was to get a resolution to support the group going to DCR to evaluate. So, I think that was kind of an unfortunate, I don't want to say misrepresentation, but anyway, sorry. Any other discussion on Little Greeno? No hands are up. All right, next item on the agenda is the re-engineering of Waverly Ave. Laura, do you want to take this one or?
Sure. So one of the streets that's in the short-term list, the short list is Waverly Ave, which is a north-south connector on the western part of Watertown, west of the square. And there's two plans on the table, and one of them has a bike lane, although not the whole length of it, but a partial bike lane where there's enough width, and where it would involve losing the parking. It's not in front of any stores. It's in front of some houses. I think that streets plan to have northwest connectors, and I believe even Waverly. I'm not sure if Waverly is mentioned in the complete streets plan, but I certainly can find that out. Matt is thinking we had a meeting of the complete streets prioritization plan. Ethan was there, Andy was there, I was there, and we all favored the plan with the bike lane removed. Within it. The other plan had the parking in it and a sharrow. It may end up going to the Public Works Committee for a little bit of public airing. I think that's where it's at right now. I don't think Matt felt like he could make that decision on his own.
Yeah, I think this is an example.
About removing the parking, that's what makes it controversial.
Yeah, I think this is an example, of complete streets in action. So there are guidelines around when you're rebuilding a street, when you introduce complete streets facilities. And so I think my assumption here is that when Matt was considering rebuilding the street, he was applying complete streets principles, which said you should consider bike lanes here. So I think the process is if you want to move away from the complete streets guidelines, it has to go through a review process with the complete streets working group. And that's the meeting that we were at, where the complete streets working group got together to review the plans to consider whether the town should move away from the complete streets recommendations. So I think that's kind of the process in action. I think the other interesting thing was that the bike lane, as Laura mentioned, the bike lane design only called for a bike lane on one side of the street. But what Matt did was he put the bike, so Waverly is like a hill. So you're going, if you're coming south, you're going uphill and then you go downhill. So he's putting the bike lanes on the uphill side where that's kind of where you need a bike lane, because as you slow down, it becomes treacherous to weave into, to sort of weave into the lane. So he's introducing the bike lanes on the uphill sides, which I thought was pretty good design. So Laura, so how do they arrive at a decision? I kind of expected that the working group would kind of come away with a consensus or a vote, but that didn't happen.
I think, you know, let me ask you a question. Is this the first time that the group has met to review a street design?
Yes.
Yes. So I think Matt's trying to feel his way through what the right process is here on in. And I just, and it's been very hard at DPW because there's been no director for a while. And so I think now that there's a director, I'm sure Matt and the new director will be discussing what the right process is.
Okay. I mean, understand this, Matt initiated this process. So to his credit, he initiated, yeah. So, you know, I feel like he's looking out for us.
Right. So when I hear anything at all, I will let people know.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Laura. Development projects. So it's 8:45. We've got 15 minutes. I guess we can go through these quickly. We didn't itemize any specific projects. I'll just list them out. Of course, there's the high school, Galen Street. I forget the address, but Tufts Health. They had a developers conference that we went to, as well as is it 81 Elm Street?
23, I want to say. 23 Elm Street.
23 Elm Street.
Right next to the
So the high school, we keep asking about strategies for bike pedestrian access, and they keep saying it's not time yet, it's not time yet. But we will certainly engage you. So I think that's pretty much the status there. Galen, I think a lot of people have been attending the Galen meeting, so I think everybody's kind of up to date with that. Tufts Health Plan is no more. The developers did a developers conference. You know, I think they're actively looking at bicycle and pedestrian access to and from the site. They understand that they have a great asset with the greenway behind the site, or actually running through the site. As they walk through the bike pedestrian access, it seemed like a fairly seamless experience. If you're on a bike, you can get to it from 3 different directions, from Mount Auburn Street, from Grove Street, or from the bikeway. You have access to protected bike parking in the garage. You know, the shower facilities are just inside the entrance. So it does seem like they've thought through the process. I don't know how you feel about that, Laura.
Yep, they have. I agree with you. I mean, I think honestly the developers are pretty good these days. They get it that they don't. So yes, I think they did do a good job. They also have a lot of parking there. It's a pretty big parking garage because it was built during a time when everybody did drive and nobody thought about encouraging people to do otherwise. They rent some of the parking to Men Auburn Hospital, so they're committed to keeping like the surface parking in particular. But, yeah.
And Elm Street is a relatively small site. I don't think there's anything significant in terms of bike pedestrian access. You know, basically, yeah. But they did talk about, you know, they did talk about bike storage, shower facilities. So those are facilities that they've sort of built into the design. So there's an awareness there. Any other development that needs to be talked about?
Nope, I think it was just to report on the 2 developers conferences that occurred since the last meeting.
All right. Now I see a bunch of hands. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Jesse, I think Jesse was the first one.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just quickly say, I echo what you said about Elm Street. I was on the Conservation Committee call yesterday, and I heard them do a presentation, and they did say they were going to have some bike storage there. And it was,
you know, and it sounds to me like he opted, you know, that it was just getting too expensive.
Okay. So Elm Street did sound like they were going to include some bike access or bike storage for their development. But the high school, I think you mentioned that first. And as I mentioned in my email, I asked a question during the community forum that they held earlier this week about bike facilities that they would have in the parking area. And they confirmed that they were looking into that, and they would definitely like to have as much bike safe bike storage and that kind of stuff for not just for students, but for, you know, people visiting the gym or Council on Aging or the admin offices and that kind of thing. And then I also asked about, would it be possible to widen Common Street where the buildings touch Common Street in order to create bike lanes, either on one side or on both sides, especially if they're going to open it up so that there's a little bit of an access road between Marshall and Common. And they just kind of said that that was something for the town to decide, not for the developers or AI3 or something. So I don't know if that's something we still want to revisit. I know we had kind of talked about Common Street and bike lanes, and that was kind of something that couldn't happen because of the cemetery and the electric box that was on the lower part of the road, but perhaps maybe on the upper part around the high school, that's something that might still be possible. So that's all I have there.
I can try to.
Okay, that'd be great.
All right, Maria.
I wanted to ask, Laura, did you end up getting my comments on both 53 and what was it, 107 Tufts?
Yep, I did.
You did?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Is there there's no more plans coming up for review or anything, and I can recycle the ones that?
Yes, you can recycle them because the plans will change.
One of
There
the
is
things.
not another one scheduled right now.
Oh, all right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You would ask something else scheduled right now.
Okay. One of the things, well, there are two things I wanted to mention about, in particular, Elm Street. The location of Elm Street is, as you know, right across from the new Arsenal area, or right to the west, right to the east of it. And it's right at the access where the river is literally right there across the street. So having access to the river is going to be really important because there's going to be cyclists and walkers and pedestrians coming across to go there. And they're going to need a way to get across that Arsenal Street, which, as all of us know, is a nightmare. And especially right there over by the entrance where Radio Shack used to be. So they're right there across. And I don't think that there's a light there. There's a light further down at the main entrance. And if they put out a light at the corner where Little Greeno comes out, there'll be a light there. But we need to think about how people are going to get across a really busy road so that people can go walking and they can ride their bikes to work. People are now going to ride their bikes all the way down to Grove Street, turn around, come back up Grove Street, and then go down Elm Street, okay, or cut through the park to go to Elm Street to get over there. So having that access from the, I guess it's from the west there or the south, is going to be really important. And we need to keep that in mind because access is everything. The other thing is I mentioned to the developers that the committee would be happy to work with them because one of the designs that they had for their bike parking is really impractical. There's no way you can lock your bike to it unless you have a very long chain. And most riders do not carry a 5 to 10 pound chain around their waist to lock a bike.
Are you talking
So,
about at Elm Street? At
yeah,
Elm Street?
yeah, it was very pretty. It's the square thing where the inside was, I don't want to call it hollow, but it was like it wasn't a standard U, it was like a rectangle, okay, with a hollow middle, and it appeared that that's where you would either lock your bike in some way or lock the lock through it. So, I think that I would love to have the developers come to the committee for us to talk to them, to discuss with them on a, not a unusual kind of basis, but in general, just invite the developers to come talk to the committee, because I think it'll give us an opportunity to have input as a team, as a whole committee. All right. And at the same time, you're going to see these same developers. I mean, it's the same lawyers, it's the same people, who are working with the developers over and over and over. And if they start coming to us and getting the same messages consistently, they're going to bake that in. And we will have less of a need to repeat ourselves. But I would like to get us to invite them, to welcome them, to talk to them as we go through this process. There's more development coming to town. This is not stopping anytime soon. We seem to be the new life science mecca. And, there's plenty of more developable opportunities in town.
All right, so we got 5 minutes. Those are great ideas, Maria. Laura, is there some way we can invite Elm Street to a meeting, or?
We can invite them, but do other people feel that way? I mean, I'd like to hear from more people about it before I just invite them.
Sure. Should we put it to a vote?
Yeah.
Okay. People in favor of inviting Elm Street developers to a future bike ped meeting? Okay. 4, 5. Okay, we got 5 hands, so I think we invite them if we can. Laura.
They were interested in coming.
We-
So I just mentioned it and they said, oh, they'd be delighted to come. I said, okay.
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 All right, thank you. Amy, you had your hand up and now it's not. All right, Lisa?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. So on the high school, I'm intrigued. I've always been intrigued about widening Common. I brought it up a little bit in terms of back when you were looking at putting a bike lane all the way to Common and having at the Mount Auburn Common stop. What do you call when you have for bikes to stop at the light with the like the state ended up doing on Charles River Road.
Protected intersection?
Yeah, protected intersection. And I always seem like there would be room there. There's not, it's not a church anymore. It's condos. It's very, very wide. But anyway, what they said was it's a planning issue for the town. So I guess just keep that on the burner to keep bringing it up at the high school meetings whenever you can, even though they haven't, so because when they engage a traffic engineer for the high school, you'll be ready, and Mark Sedaris will have a sense of your guys' sentiment for that. The other thing is, I'm curious, I've always wondered why we don't have bike lanes on Orchard Street I was kind of disappointed with the Waverly design years ago, how the bump outs, it's really hard to kind of avoid them on a bike. But anyway, I just toss that out there. I don't know if you guys are gonna talk about that. Elm Street, yeah, this development, I'm hoping that you guys, Arsenal Park, Elm Street, Greeno Boulevard, it'd be good to keep your eyes on that and the design. I'm hoping it stays more natural conservation-ish for cross-country, the feel of it, as well as having, you know, good bike pedestrian access. Oh, I was gonna say Elm Street, the other thing, don't forget, they are adding a sidewalk. So it's not just bikes.
Yeah.
So that's good. And if you have any opportunities or thoughts of collaborating again with Commission on Disability, I think the commission would welcome it, especially we're really bumping into tight scheduling with limitations with WCA TV and being able to broadcast or record or stream meetings. So I just tossed that out there, no directive or anything, it just a reminder about that. But yeah, you know, so the light that they've committed to, because I didn't want to put in the light right when the hotel went in, Maria. So I think we have some complicated.
Yes, I remember.
We have some complicated traffic bike pattern safety stuff that
And Lisa, that's also a good place for runners to go across. If that
Yes.
area is becoming a mecca for pharma, then we're going to get a lot of people who are very outdoorsy.
Yeah, no, I agree with
just-
you. I mean, I see runners already. And the other thing is, I don't know if you guys if you're in touch at all with like sorry, I'm spacing. It's too late. It's like my fourth Zoom meeting. The electric bikes, there, Peter Fuller, and even the company up here on Walnut Street. So I'm hoping we don't forget about that. Anyway, I know I'm getting a little off track, but I'm just thinking about that, the picture in general, like you're talking about the circulation, and really hoping that we promote biking a lot around the high school and just this whole historic area. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Lisa.
Oh, I just say one other thing, sorry. On the bike ped plan and this study for Little Greeno, not the bike ped, the Little Greeno closure, Laura made a really good point, but all I meant to say was that, you know, you got to justify the study, right? So yes, we want a willingness to have a study, but why? So that's what I mean about a little bit of clarity of why, for, you know, ideally the end result of what you have in mind, maybe that doesn't end up being the chosen path or something else comes out of it, but that's all I meant about that.
All right.
Agreed.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay. It's 9 o'clock, but there's a couple, well, really one new business item I want to cover. Well, first of all, I hope everybody saw the newsletter. I think Laura did a great job on that. That was well done. Thank you, Laura. And new business wise, and again, I might, if you don't mind, Laura, I might kick this over to you, but there's a climate, what's it called? Climate summit coming up.
Yes, we need Janet. I believe it is a week from Sunday, like 1 to 3 or something like that. And I don't know a lot about it, but it's meant to be different interest groups in town talking to each other kind of about what they're doing. And really Janet knows more about it than I do, but I think my feeling about it is there's probably no one else who's going to talk about transportation as part of the climate plan for the future. So it really is a good idea, I think, if someone could go to that. And, you know, just, I think people sometimes miss that connection. That, you know, that transportation is an issue, is a climate issue. So that's a culture change. That's a way that we
Yes.
can change culture a little bit.
So
I'm
does
sorry,
anybody
Janet,
have the
who?
details?
Janet, what?
Janet Jameson is one of the organizers, I think, or is,
Oh, thank you. Yes, transportation, huge issue. Thank you, Laura.
yeah, thank
Does
you.
anybody have the details of the meeting? Or the-
I can get you the details. I feel like I might have already forwarded an email from Janet about it, but I'll do that again. I'll look for something.
So Laura,
Thank you, Laura.
It's
So
not
you-
like, it's not a town, it's not a town organized thing. It's a resident organized thing.
so Laura,
Okay.
you sent it to me. I sent it to the group, I think, earlier this week, and I'm sending it again right now.
Okay, great.
Okay.
It's gone. So any other new business anybody wants to bring up?
Do we
All
have
right.
a schedule for next year yet?
No, I'll do
Okay.
that. And
I'll put a plug in
Thanks.
for another resident group this Sunday at 3, right after Climate Summit, when you're all energized. There's a resident called Watertown Forward to talk,
Oh.
take people's questions about the charter review that has just started.
Oh. Lisa, can you send something out about that or?
Yeah,
Thank
if you
you.
send it to me, I'll send it. I'll forward it. I believe that the climate summit is next weekend, not this weekend.
Oh, that's good.
And really, if you want more details, I would email Janet Jameson.
Okay, I remember to do that.
Maria.
Don't mind me, it's just I'm tired.
All right, I think we've covered everything for this meeting. Everybody in favor of adjourning? Show of
I'm
hands.
falling asleep.
Okay. We're adjourned. Hope to see everybody at the meeting on the 7th, and have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Right?
Bye.